Hello, and welcome back to Mysterious North Carolina, a podcast exploring historical, natural, and supernatural phenomena in our home state. I'm your host, Nathan.
And this is head researcher, Justin.
And this is local heartthrob, Bennett.
So, Justin, what mystery are we looking into today?
Today, we will be looking at a wild story of a lost people, which comes to us down from Cherokee legend. Although part of the mystery is whether these people come from Cherokee legend or if they come from settlers.
So
They are known as the Moon-Eyed Men.
The Moon-Eyed Men. All right, so we're going to be delving into some different theories with the Moon-Eyed Men. Justin, would you like to kick us off?
The Moon-Eyed Men are described as a pale albino nocturnal race, which was destroyed by the Cherokee when they arrived into the Appalachian Mountains. All right, well, there's essentially 5 mysteries involving the Moon-Eyed Men. One is like I mentioned, whether they're really Cherokee in origin or if they're European in origin. The other is if they were real or if they were myth. The other would be whether the Moon-Eyed Men are a people from America, or if they're Europeans, or if they're some more exotic, non-human, perhaps, race of beings. There's also a certain ancient structures which are sometimes attributed to them, and also why they're even called the Moon-Eyed Men. Whether their eyes looked like moons, or if they just hung out at night, or what was up?
All right, so let's lay some groundwork here. So the general idea, as I understand from my research about the Moon-Eyed Men, is that they were this separate race during the time of the Cherokee that were generally albino in appearance and shorter and bearded, and they had apparently eyes that looked like the moon. And this was supposedly in Appalachia, in North Carolina, in the mountains.
Right, good summary.
Yeah. So let's just get down right to it. The first report of the Moon-Eyed Men comes from 1797. Benjamin Smith Barton describes them as not being able to see in the daytime and as having white skin, and he describes them as being an albino race. And so that is one theory, which is somewhat plausible. We do know that there are like some tribes of people where albinism appears more common. There's a tribe in Panama called the Kuna that have higher rates of albinism. So that's one of the more realistic theories, perhaps. At least something that I find more realistic.
So what are some of the more outlandish theories?
All right, well, there is one that the Moon-Eyed Men came from Wales.
The country?
Yes, they did not come from cetaceans.
Oh, I'm so
The
sorry.
sea
They
creature.
didn't come from, they didn't ride on whales.
No. This
Ride whales
This-
deep into the Appalachian wilderness.
yeah, this is not an Atlantean theory. Although,
So what
Atlantis, that's not such a bad idea now that I think about it.
We should have an episode on that, on North Carolina's Atlantis.
that sounds
Atlantean
Otherwise known as
connections.
Greensboro.
that's well established. What credence is given to the Moon-Eyed Men coming from Wales?
All right, so
What evidence is there for that?
okay, so basically there's like this legend that Prince Madoc is like this Welsh prince guy. He just sailed from Wales to America in like the 12th century.
Okay.
And the evidence for it is, well, we don't have much evidence.
Interesting.
So just this tall tale of Prince Madoc sailing there at that time, and that combined with the idea that the Moon-Eyed Men are pale?
Well, looking at a bit more of a realistic theory, there is, of course, as many people have spoken about the Madagascarian theory.
Go on.
And this is something that, several professors
Are you talking about
have talked about.
Lemuria?
Yeah, exactly. The idea that there's these blue-eyed lemurs that were an invasive species in North Carolina in that time period. And that these blue-eyed lemurs were the cause, according to some professors.
Okay.
So you're saying that the Cherokee fought with blue-eyed lemurs, and they're not around anymore because of that? Well, I mean, Alexander the Great did fight monkeys when he went to India.
Yeah, it's not unprecedented.
There is
right?
evidence that the Moon-Eyed Men were smaller or shorter than average, correct?
Yes, in some versions of the legend, they are smaller.
And lemurs are small.
Yeah, but although they're always described as sometimes being like living underground.
Do we have any fossil evidence of lemurs in North America?
No.
That is flaw in that theory. A strike against it.
It should be noted that they're supposedly bearded, these Moon-Eyed Men.
Sure. So what would that indicate?
Justin?
Well, yeah, so part of that, yeah, could it be, flying squirrels?
You sound like you're trying almost to convince yourself of that the way you pose that question.
It sounded almost as if you've been
Bennett,
researching flying squirrels.
and I just want to say Bennett's head was nodding vigorously when Justin asked whether there could be flying squirrels. I am skeptical of that. We do have some interesting photo evidence, of statues that have persisted from that time and place. Is that correct, Justin?
Yes.
And how would you describe kind of the resemblance of those statues?
Yes, so for those of us not on our YouTube channel, the best way to describe them is imagine the love child of the Pillsbury Doughboy and E.T. And imagine someone just carved two of these in stone.
That's a thought image I'm wanting to take to bed.
Pillsbury Doughboy and E.T.
Yeah, that gives you an idea of what they look like.
Yeah.
They're in a museum out near Murphy, I believe.
That is intriguing.
So that is a one bit of more solid archaeological evidence we have.
That is dated to.
We don't know.
Okay.
No one's actually done it. I mean, like,
inconclusive dating. I'm just gonna throw this out there. Albino gnomes.
Yeah.
Well,
Albino gnomes. Moon-Eyed Men. Albino gnomes.
Gnomes live
Reaction.
underground.
There's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the beards, the stature, the complexion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's convincing. The only thing though is the time period, right, with the Cherokee.
The only thing. What about the fossil record or the fact that
I don't think gnomes have fossils.
Okay.
Why wouldn't they have fossils?
Well,
Are you saying this isn't a
like garden gnomes?
This isn't a purely natural phenomenon.
We're talking about garden gnomes, right? Like the pottery.
We're not talking about actual statues.
So is there any evidence supporting albino gnomes as being the Moon-Eyed Men?
I don't believe
Well, the statue doesn't look like albino gnomes.
All right. That's enough for me. Well, let's move on. There was another kind of theory that we were reading about in researching this episode. Bennett, could you talk about that briefly?
It's actually a bit farther out there than you would imagine. But this is a theory that's kind of been floating around the internet. And, supposedly, and, I don't know this firsthand, but supposedly there are rumblings that some historians suggest that J.R.R. Tolkien, the creator of Lord of the Rings, who had this orc type...
the archetype, the orc...
Yeah.
Orcs as the villainous army of former elves. Go on.
So some historians are suggesting that J.R.R. Tolkien, the creator of The Lord of the Rings, was accessing ancestral blood memories when describing the Pale Orcs. And that is to say that the Moon-Eyed Men interacting with J.R.R. Tolkien's ancestors created these memories that were passed down through generations and ultimately served as the inspiration for the Pale Orcs in The Lord of the Rings.
Wow. Well, that is a really interesting theory. Justin, is there any literature that we found on this idea of ancestral blood memory?
Well, I do not know what historians Bennett has been reading that have alleged that Tolkien did this.
Yeah, I'm also curious about that. But is there any
Yes.
literature, any?
Yes, there are psychologists who support there being genetic memory.
Okay, can you go into that a little bit?
The idea that some memories can be passed on through generations.
Right.
The thing is, Tolkien was English,
Right.
and the Moon-Eyed Men were in America.
Right.
So there's no way Tolkien could have had an ancestral blood memory of the Moon-Eyed Men.
Right. So J.R.R. Tolkien would not be a direct descendant of the Cherokee. However, I guess one could argue that this kind of ancestral memory goes back even deeper and across different cultures in, thousands and thousands of years past.
Well,
That's an argument one would have to make to conclude that J.R.R. Tolkien was somehow influenced by this ancestral blood memory. Is that right, Justin?
Yeah, I would just jump in and say I think it's really fascinating that some of the leading historians are claiming this because, of course, on the face of it, it sounds a bit out there, right? It sounds a bit wild. Justin?
So when you say leading historians, could we name names?
I mean, you've done research as well. Would you like to?
I have not read these leading historians, but I'll take your word for it. Justin?
I mean, it's not my word; it's their word.
Well,
It's their word, right? That's right. Justin?
Well, I've read a lot of literature on the whole Prince Madoc Wales theory.
Okay.
Seems to be the
Intertwined, almost.
The Welsh Indian legend has been a very persistent legend, surprisingly. We first get mentioned a bit in the Elizabethan period, and a little bit of Elizabethan propaganda as to why England has a claim to the New World. They use this Prince Madoc legend to support it.
Yeah.
And there have been various times in the 18th, 19th century when different people have claimed that they are so-called Welsh Indians, people descended from this expedition to America that intermingled and was absorbed into Native Americans. So,
And then the question becomes, would the Cherokee describe these Welsh as Moon-Eyed Men because of their paleness?
yes, that seems to be the connection that writers make when they try to connect the Moon-Eyed Men with the Welsh theory.
But does that fit with the behavior and living underground?
Welsh people, there are a lot of coal mines in Wales, but I don't think Welsh people spend all their time underground.
I think that would be a stretch to say that the Welsh are underground creatures.
Well, no, it would be to say that they were living underground. They tended to live in underground settlements. But if they're being absorbed into subsumed, into the Cherokee culture and way of life, that doesn't seem to fit very well.
I think there's clearly some holes with that theory, so let's move on to the next one.
Okay, Justin,
Well,
you want to move on?
So a theory that I came up with is that if it is Europeans who are the source of the Moon-Eyed Men, I think a more likely source would be the Spanish conquistadors.
Okay.
Because they came over, we're talking 16th, 17th century, And there are a number of them that like went through North Carolina and the Appalachians, Fernando de Soto, Tristan de Luna, Juan Porto, and we know that they did encounter the different tribes there, and they did fight against them in some cases, like the Coosa Confederacy. So these stories could have been sort of transferred to the Cherokee and gotten kind of mingled.
And almost like a game of telephone, to where the stories get altered and twisted over time to become, more legendary and less based in reality, right? That embellishment.
Sure.
Anyway. So now something we haven't covered is that some people claim the Moon-Eyed Men are connected to a number of different structures in the Appalachians, which are rather ancient, a lot of them.
Okay, can you talk about some of these structures?
Okay, so there's one in Georgia. There's this one in Georgia, Fort Mountain State Park. It's a series of stones around in a wall, and it resembles a fort. Hence the name Fort Mountain. It is in Georgia, but it's not too far from the North Carolina border.
Yeah.
And that has been connected with the Welsh legend. People say this could have been like a Welsh castle they tried to build. I mean, I've looked at photos of it. I mean, it's. Let me put it this way: if you get enough people finding enough stones, I think anyone could have made it, whether it's Welsh or Native Americans or Moon-Eyed Men.
And moving on a little bit, and this is a theory that Nathan, you've really taken a liking to.
Go on.
So would you like to tell us a little bit more, Nathan, about the alien theory?
Well, it's always aliens, of course. So, these kind of humanoid beings being described, as moon-eyed men, draws one's attention to outer space, to the stars. Yeah, and so I think, as, we kind of think about that kind of alien / also kind of a crypto-terrestrial theory, so some kind of, creature, undiscovered creature that's alien, or being that's alien to us, that does live, on the earth or within the earth. That could kind of lend, kind of mesh well with this kind of some of these structures that Justin, you were talking about being built, and kind of some of those being mounds. That we don't really fully understand how they were built by the people in that time. Yeah,
so there's about 50 mounds in North Carolina, and I visited one of them. Mound Creeks is the name. It's called Town Creek Indian Mound. Which we may talk about in a future episode. But yeah, there's about 50 of these mounds, and we know that they were built by the Mississippian culture about, I think, like 1,000 years ago, most of them.
Okay.
Some more, some less. But we don't know all about how they lived or what purpose all of these mounds served. Because there's so many of them, we haven't investigated a lot of them.
But we have good evidence about who built them, and it probably wasn't aliens or crypto-terrestrials. Is that what
have you reverted on your beliefs?
I mean, as far as we know, we haven't discovered any crypto-terrestrials in these mounds. But it is an interesting connection with the Moon-Eyed Men. But because you do have these mounds and
my alien crypto-terrestrial theory feels like it's on shaky mounds.
I would like to say that I think personally that the alien theory is a bit absurd due to the fact that the Cherokee would probably be talking about spaceships, or the fact that they were from other worlds, as opposed to just saying that they're pale and that they live underground.
You have so much to learn about ancient astronaut theory.
Well, there is a moon connection here.
Sure.
In the nameage.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Justin, could you briefly just kind of talk a little bit about that crypto-terrestrial theory?
So crypto-terrestrial refers to any sort of theory which talks about a race of sapient beings of non-human origin. So it could be it could be anything from different hominids to reptilians to more exotic stuff. And oftentimes cryptoterrestrial theory is used as a way to explain UFO phenomena without saying that they came from outer space. They actually came from either like the center of the Earth, hollow Earth theory.
But why would we not have good evidence of these beings unless they somehow had advanced technology that could camouflage themselves?
Yes. That's part of the reason they're called crypto-terrestrials.
Right.
Cryptos, they are good at hiding themselves.
I like that.
I don't know what most geologists think about the hollow Earth theory, but I don't think they're too bullish on the idea.
No, I don't suppose so.
We don't know what they're hiding up at the poles.
Very, very
That
fair.
is
and
true.
And that may be touched on future installments. Justin, so let's kind of wrap up with the last kind of couple thoughts that you had.
Okay, so last thoughts I had. So the legend of the Moon-Eyed Men, it's somewhat similar to another Cherokee legend of the New Nahi. These are fairy-like beings, which we may cover in a future episode of Mysterious North Carolina. Now, the Moon-Eyed Men do seem to be more rooted in the physical world than the New Nahi, which seems to be a bit more like fairies, but it is related to this whole crypto-terrestrial theory.
Okay. Very interesting. Well, let's see. Do we want to kind of go to kind of closing thoughts and kind of where we each land and collectively on this incredible myth and idea of the Moon-Eyed Men?
All right, so just ranking what I feel might be the most likely.
Yeah.
I think a Native American tribe with a higher rate of albinism is possible, but the evidence would have been wiped out before we were able to actually kind of confirm that. That's plausible. I think it's also possible that these legends might have some connection to Spanish conquistadors that were fought against. I think many of the mounds are interesting. Whether a concrete connection to the Moon-Eyed Men can be established, I don't think so. I don't agree with people who say that the Moon-Eyed Men, it's entirely something made up by American and European writers.
Yeah,
I think this actually does have something in Cherokee. I think this is a Cherokee legend.
Yeah,
It's just that a lot of people who supported the Welsh theory kind of latched onto it as a way to like give credence to it.
Yeah,
and
motivations there.
I mean, Welsh people could have made it to America before Columbus. I just don't think that the Moon-Eyed Men are great evidence for the Welsh Madoc theory.
Agreed. Bennett, thoughts?
Yeah, so I think it's just that, a legend, right? I don't know how much basing there really is for this idea that there was this like race of albinos which were shorter and lived mostly in the ground at the time of the Cherokee. So, using our rating scale, I would say that for the best theory, which is probably, an offshoot type of Cherokee or, different species which were more albino, I would say a 2 out of 5, so unlikely, but still possible. Justin, what was your out of 5 rating again? And for which theory?
And this is again on the theory that they are. What is he rating?
So whatever theory you find most likely.
And the likelihood of it.
Oh, the theory I find most likely, I have it with about a 3 confidence level overall. That I have about a 3 confidence level that this is based off of reality in some way.
Okay.
Nathan?
Well, it's hard to kind of nail down a final opinion here with so many different kind of various theories, and I do agree with Justin that this is based in authentic, Cherokee legend and not kind of a later American invention. However, it's really hard to kind of square, kind of the physical evidence with some of these more fringe theories. I would say, it's definitely possible that there was kind of a subset race that maybe looked a little different and was interpreted in some ways as moon-eyed people. I'm not sure about the implications for that, but it seems possible. But confidence, 2.5 out of 5. I'll hedge.
Oh, you're trying to split between us.
Yeah.
What about so
I said 2.
2
2 out of 5. Yeah, but we all agreed though on the same theory though.
There's something to it.
For
Yeah.
what is most likely.
Right.
Which
All
is that.
Well, and Justin, you want to close us off with just the first line here on the Cherokee?
The first line?
Yes.
Talking about, in 1775, Cherokee dwelt chiefly upon the headwaters of the Savannah, the Chattahoochee, the Alabama, the Tennessee, and Cumberland rivers. They have a tradition that they came from the west and exterminated a certain moon-eyed people.
And that's taken from?
That's from Ezekiel Sanford's History of the United States Before the Revolution.
Well, and with that, we'll leave you all to come to your own conclusions and formulate your own theories.
And leave in the comments what you all think is most likely.
Yes.
And your ratings for that as well. We would love to see the conversation going on.
Yeah, if we have any believers in the Welsh Madoc theory, we would love for you to comment about how we neglected to look over the evidence of the Mandan Corcorgles and all the stuff we did not cover in this episode. This was not a Welsh Madoc episode, so we may or may not touch it in the future. It's kind of Carolina adjacent.
Yeah. So we'll think more about that. Well, and until next time, this is a farewell from Nathan.
And from Bennett.
And from Justin.
Yep. Until next time, when we will be discussing a mystery involving the pirate Blackbeard.